Well, Lauren, thanks so much for joining me. I'm so excited to talk today.
Me too. I'm so excited to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. So you work for a company called Willow. I no longer have infants, newborns, but Willow is a breast pump, correct?
Yes, it's the world's first wearable breast pump.
Yes. So just funny story here at the beginning. My sister-in-law recently had her baby, her first baby, and we were all, there's a place called Hocking Hills down in southern Ohio, and we were all at a cabin, and my cousin and I looked at each other and we're like, what is that noise? And why do Gracie's boobs, sorry, Grace, why do they look even bigger than normal? And we didn't realize she had this pump in there. And we're just like, oh my goodness, where was that when we were nursing and needing to pump? So I love the concept. I'm just sad that it wasn't available back when I needed it.
Same.
Yeah.
Same. I definitely would have pumped longer. That's for sure.
Yeah. Especially for working moms. Goodness. I mean, my hats are off to women that have to go back to the office. And it's just again, when I was nursing, that thing is so clunky and you're just lugging it around. So, oh my word, it's such a needed, necessary convenience, I guess, that we have the opportunity to have nowadays.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, that's really why we invented it, right?
Yeah.
We'll talk about this a little bit, but I really am proud to work here, and I'm very excited about the things that we are building for the next generation of moms and continuing to raise the bar.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so I'm kind of jumping ahead of myself. Why don't you go back, quickly introduce yourself, and tell me your role at Willow?
Sure. I'm Lauren Scocozza. I'm the VP of Product at Willow. So my team helps create our breast pumps, our feeding products that accompany them, and our connected mobile app.
Cool. Okay. And then I would say that the thing about Willow that is slightly different, and we've kind of already touched on it, is the convenience factor for moms. And I think so often in the past, it was more, I guess, society, culture, whatever we want to say, was more baby-centric. But you guys have really shifted the focus on the moms here. So what challenges have you faced in advocating for that change?
Yeah, I mean, I think like every new mom feels this at some point, right? Like when you're pregnant, it's so much about you, right? You're carrying the baby. There's a lot of concern of how you're feeling and how you're doing. And then sometimes it feels like after you have the baby, the attention is very much shifted to the baby. And, moms rightfully, understandably so, put themselves in the back seat. And it feels like society kind of does the same thing, right? And I think what is really special about Willow is our DNA, who we are, has always been focused on mom. We know that a taken care of mom means a taken care of baby, right? It really does go, sure, her main focus is the baby and our main focus is her. And I think that's a really great position to be in as a company because it makes us very intentional about what we're solving for and really what we want to create. Our founders invented this wearable pump by talking to moms, listening to their problems. They could have definitely said, you know what, we need to make a pump that gets more milk for that baby. But what instead they said is pumping is really hard for her. And she deserves better than that. Like she's sacrificing so much of her time and her effort, her mental energy, her physical body to make sure that her baby is well fed. She deserves a better experience. And so I believe we revolutionized the pumping industry. We said you do not have to be plugged into a wall 4 to 6 times a day, 20 minutes away from your baby in order to feed your baby successfully.
Yeah.
I think shifting the focus from getting milk for the baby to making the feeding journey easier for mom is a revolutionary idea. And it really wasn't one that everyone was on board with right away. Yeah. You can see now in the years after Willow was created, wearables are everywhere, like you said, right? Even your family members are using wearables. So we know that was an unmet need, even if it wasn't something that was explicitly said.
Yeah. No, and I think my sister-in-law was using Willow because when I got this interview, she was excited. She was like, oh,
even better.
But again, I always have to be cautious when I interview someone that's a founder and or higher up. I don't want to say promoting a product because that's not necessarily why you're here, but I think this conversation is bigger than even that because it's bringing awareness to the fact that we have existed in this realm that doesn't necessarily I don't even want to say put us first, but just consider the experience that we're having. I don't necessarily need to be put first, but I would like for my experience to be taken seriously.
Yeah, and I think, there are room for lots of private companies to stand for different things, right?
Yeah.
And what I think is a connection to what you're doing and what you're building here is what does it mean to have a clear intention, right? And
Mhm.
so when we sit here and we decide what are we going to do next? Who are we solving for? There are so many times where we think, oh, we could do this for the baby and for this. And
Mhm.
we come back to what makes us special, what makes us
Mhm.
different, how are we founded, who are we?
Yeah.
And that intentionality comes through in our products and it
Mm.
comes through in what our moms experience. I also believe that what Willow started is now bigger than us, right?
Mhm.
Like we invented a product that changed the way pumping was for all moms. And we raised the bar. I truly believe that. And I think that we should continue to do that as like
Mhm.
a company, right? That's what gets me up in the morning. That's what gets
Mhm.
me excited to go to work, which is I think we're not done. There's still more to do as a
Mhm.
company, as a society, right? Like it's not any easier in motherhood today, right? Still hard stuff out there and
Yeah.
different problems. So
Mhm.
I think that solving those and continuing to fight for mom is something that we are intentional about and that we care about and that we'll
Mhm.
continue to come back to.
Absolutely. And not to get political because I try to keep that out of the show, but in a sense, I was just telling someone today, just when you look to politics as a whole, it seems like what voice do I really have here? What change can I really make? So I really do think there's something to be said about conversations like this, podcasts, the messages of a company that honestly do seem to move the needle a little bit more, at least culturally. Again, to me, I'm like, this is where we have these conversations and we're bringing it to audiences and or just putting products on the market and saying, look, the story behind why is greater. And then that continues the conversation, which actually change hearts and changes minds.
Yeah, as a mom, I think a lot about all of the downsides of social media, right? Like my
Sure.
daughter is a toddler and she's going to
Yeah.
grow up with a much different internet than I grew up
Mhm.
with, right?
Mhm.
But one of the things that is great about it and is special is that we have the opportunity to share experiences and stories in a way that our parents never could. And bringing light to talking about makes things feel normal, accepted, and then are ripe for change, right?
Mhm.
I remember I had my daughter during COVID.
Mhm.
I felt very isolated. I was physically isolated, but
Okay.
also I felt that, right? Like, and that was a very lonely place to be as a new mom, as a first
Mhm.
time mom. When I got to Willow, my daughter's a year old. I was still like very much in matrescence. I was very much in the throes of it. I listened to so many women who had the same exact experiences, had the same exact problems and worries and anxieties and everything else. And there was strength in that. There is something to be said for a community, a country, a gender coming together and saying, this isn't good enough. We
Mhm.
deserve better. We want better. We're going to demand that. And I feel like there's a power in that we can own as women,
Yeah.
not just as moms, but as women.
Let's talk about breastfeeding, stress, and postpartum depression. I don't know how long you were pumping or nursing, but you said you may have done it longer if you had this accessibility. But so often the breastfeeding process will contribute to a woman's postpartum depression because she feels guilty, she feels shameful if she can't provide enough, it's too hard, all of these things. So what changes do you think are necessary to better support moms during this time period?
This is such a good question. One of the reasons why I was really drawn to Will, like I said, I joined when I was like still a very new mom.
Okay.
And I went through very similar experiences myself. Many women do, right? And I
Yeah.
guess that's the other part is like coming to work here where your customer is a new mom. You're like, oh, everyone is experiencing this
Yeah.
as well. But it was an incredibly innovative pump in the way that we had mobility, right? Like the wearability. But there was also something else, which was we were a smart connected pump to a phone, to a
Mhm.
mobile app. And what that did was it gave you the ability to see how much milk you were pumping. But when I first got to Willow, one of the things that I felt was like, oh, okay, this is like a smart data going on, but it's not telling me if this is enough for my baby. Like this
Mhm.
data alone is actually feeling a little anxiety producing. Am I producing the right amount of milk? Am I doing enough? Is this the right experience to
Mhm.
give to a new mom?
Mhm.
And the team felt like, no. Like we looked at this and we said, it was our own product, right? And we said, this can be better. And so what we did was we added context and expert services into the app next to your data that can
Mhm.
help you understand it better. So we have
Mhm.
over 130 articles, testimonials, infographics, videos explaining pumping, explaining the mechanics of breastfeeding,
Mhm.
of pain, of how to fix it, of how much should you be pumping if you're 2 weeks postpartum. It's not 8 ounces in a bottle. That's not what your baby needs. Your baby's stomach is a lot smaller than that, actually. And so your body is providing enough for your baby wherever
Mhm.
you are in your journey. And yes, there are some cases where supplementing and so on and so forth. But the picture on social media is these really, like full pumps and all these things. That's not what every baby at every stage needs. And I think that
Mhm.
context is extremely important. I believe that moms should have access to this information and not have to go and Google it and end up in some like place with lots of opinions. Just it should be medically vetted. It should
Mhm.
be science backed. These things are important and it should be right there next to your data. So it helps you give you that peace of mind and confidence instead
Mhm.
of worrying, is this enough? Am I enough?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I feel like I'm thinking back to my nursing journeys. It was for me actually my first, it was way easier. Then I feel like with the second, it was like, okay, you're watching the first, so you can't like sit here and just enjoy this if it's enjoyable. And then the third, you're just like, put me on the boob when I can. And I don't even think I really pumped with him because it was just truly sporadic whenever I would be able to nurse him. But going back to that first baby, I think the technology, that innovation is really neat because I guess I just didn't really know what I was doing. I was 26 when I had my daughter, and I didn't know how much she was getting, so I was just constantly nursing, and I had the time to do that, but again, if we're looking at working moms or if you just have a more regimented schedule, you're gonna kinda need to know how much milk your baby's getting, so the fact that it measures that is incredible.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, listen, I was 36 when I had my first baby.
Mhm.
I also didn't know what I was doing.
Funny though, I look back, I something about being 26, I feel like I was way more carefree when I had my first versus my third. My third, I think I understood risk a lot more. So most people, it's the inverse. They get more lax. I feel like I was way more lax with my first. And it's curious how it plays out for every mom. All right. Okay. So you were talking about, let's stay on that thought of innovation and where you see Willow headed, anything that you guys currently have in the works, or I guess how you maybe the next answer you can give is how you wanna continue to support moms.
Yeah, yeah. The way that we started, right, bringing moms mobility, which essentially gave them the opportunity and convenience to pump more often, right? Because you could pump anywhere, you could move around and pump, you wouldn't have to be plugged into the wall. Gave you that freedom, which with that freedom and convenience allowed you to pump more often. And so, the mechanics of breastfeeding is supply chain, right? What you take out is then what your body is going to make. And so, pumping gives moms the ability to pump to their goals, whatever those may be. I think the best in class technology, right, connected to the pump, giving you information, letting you know how much you're pumping, plus the mobility is a great way to start. I think where we go next is bring that to as many moms as we possibly can. I think
Mhm.
our next chapter is about accessibility. That's what I
Mhm.
want it to be. Our company feels really passionately about that. We believe that all moms deserve to have access to this best in class breast pump and sort of that connected experience to get her the right information. I
Mhm.
think one of the really hard things about what we started to talk about earlier about the state of motherhood in the US is there are a lot of maternal care gaps right now.
Mhm.
And I do believe that private companies like ours have a responsibility, especially when your customer is a new mom, to help fill some of that gap in quality maternal care. And while that isn't going to change overnight, I do believe that smart, responsible technology can help with that.
And so I don't think I don't feel like I've heard you talk about AI. Let's talk a little bit more about that. Are you utilizing AI in the wearable technology? Again, sorry, I'm not super familiar with the actual device.
Yeah, we're using it way more in the maternal healthcare content and
Okay.
services aspect. So we have a connected app. Yeah.
Okay,
And I
cool.
think that's like where, as we were talking about before,
Yeah.
the wearability of the wearable pump that we invented is one part, but I do think that connected to the app gives you sort of that context and understanding and information that you need. And then it's our
Mm.
responsibility to make sure that's medically vetted, scientifically backed, and the right information for mom.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
it's not a silver bullet by any means, but I do believe that responsible technology and AI and things like that can help close those gaps. And the way that we're doing it is we partnered with a company called Emma. They are a conversational AI for female health. So not just for maternal health, but all of female health.
Mhm.
And they focus on bringing more information, personal guidance, all medically vetted and trained to whoever is asking the question. So you can
Mhm.
go into our app, you can type in a question, you can get answers back that you know that you can trust.
Mm.
I do think that with the maternity care deserts that are in the US right now, like they say it's anywhere from 2 to 5 million women live in areas without access to OBGYNs, to hospitals, to birth centers. And so I guess what I think the point is important is the way that we're integrating with AI is really to help bring medically vetted, expert backed information in our app. So you can ask questions and we'll give you answers. Emma is trained by medical experts. So all of the information is really easy to understand. It's supportive, it's compassionate. It's a really interesting way of getting information and
Mhm.
learning. We like to say it's kind of like if your best friend also had a medical degree and she was in your
Mhm.
pocket and you wanted to ask those sort of questions like that. So it's a way to scale
Mhm.
information for, especially in the US, where there's a lot of women who live in these maternity care deserts.
Yeah, absolutely. Also, I just pulled up your YouTube channel for Willow, and there's quite a bit of resources on YouTube as well. I will say there's something to be said about it can feel intimidating to call the hospital back up and to ask for their services. I have friends that have loved that. I have friends that haven't loved it so much. So I think this is like kind of a cool, it's just another resource I think that's available that is really nice to have.
Yeah, and like the middle of the night, especially pumping and
Mhm.
breastfeeding, can feel like a very particularly anxiety provoking time.
Yeah.
So, that's probably not the time to pull up Google.
Yeah.
But
Yes, it is.
this is a much, much easier, better way to do it.
Yeah. Just a few more things before we wrap up. I didn't realize the global maternity care market is valued at over $90 billion. Whoa, that's
Yeah.
insane. Okay, so this is a thought. I know that a lot of people, if they're listening and they're curious in getting a Willow for themselves, does insurance cover it? Because I know at one point in time, insurance didn't cover breast pumps. So this one seems a little bit not bougier, but a little bit nicer. So what
Yeah,
tax?
probably on average, like up to 40% of Willow's cost is covered by
Okay.
insurance. It depends on your provider and your
Okay.
plan. But yes, you can definitely, and a lot of
Mhm.
people get it that way
Yeah,
for sure.
yeah. Well, anyways, before we wrap up, are there any other final words of encouragement you wanna leave with listeners or any other, I don't know, just your aspirations for the company, anything you wanna leave the listener?
Yeah, I think the most important thing to me is that moms understand that their experiences, although every mom has a different
Mhm,
experience, a lot of them are rooted in the same core needs and
mhm,
things. And I really do believe that as a company and as a mom, we have responsibilities to each other to make it better for the people that come after us. I really love what you're doing with your podcast. We are advocating on Capitol Hill for federal and state legislation changes. We know what moms need to be
mhm,
supported, and we're going to do something
mhm.
about it. And, it's the last thing a new mom needs to do. She needs to worry about her baby. But, as we continue to go through the next generations. It's the way that I want to leave the world for my daughter. I really do believe that looking out for each other is important.
Yeah. And like I said, I do think that companies that have a mission that they're able to clearly communicate out, again, via podcast or in whatever way possible, it seems like a more direct path for change, at least in my opinion. There's not so many corrupt players, it seems. But again, I'll just leave my political opinions aside. Well, Lauren, where can listeners grab a Willow if they're looking for one or connect with Willow online?
You can visit onewillow.com, and it's at Willow Pump on all of our social media channels, which I highly recommend. We have a really awesome social media team, and they make really great content every day. And we're also available at Target, Amazon, and of course through your insurance channel.
Awesome. Well, I usually ask my guests, how do you live with clear intentions? You can either answer that from the perspective of Willow, or you can answer it for yourself, whatever you prefer.
I think I'll answer for myself.
Yeah. So the question is, what does it mean to you to live a life with clear intentions?
I think when I was a new mom, and it's still definitely a big part of my identity, she's 4, there was a lot of murkiness. There was not a lot of clarity. I think one of the things I learned from coming to Willow and talking to other moms who were like me at a similar time in their life was we're all going through something really similar, even if when it's different. And the best way to recenter yourself when things feel really chaotic, really anxious, like high stress, is to remember who you are. And I think that I am still Lauren. I was Lauren then. I am Lauren now. I'm a different person in becoming a mom, but I'm still me. And there are parts of me that have changed forever, and there are parts of me that will stay the same. And I think living a life with clear intentions is remembering who you are, recentering back to what's important to you, and being able to make decisions based off of that, especially when there is so much noise around you. So
that's so good.
Yeah, I love that question so much.
Yeah,
so thank
I'm
you,
glad
Diane.
that you answered it from a personal perspective. And again, I do think that Willow as a company has a clear direction that they are moving in and moving towards. So I felt like this is a very aligned conversation. I'm happy to get the word out about such a neat product and an necessary product. So thanks for sharing more about it. And I appreciate you joining me.
Thank you, Diane. It was my pleasure.